Hey guys, welcome. We started this a while ago. For those of you guys who've been following along, we started with these Arise conversations, and we had an amazing one with Brian and Emily Feig, thousands of views across the internet. And it's been so much fun to hear how Brian and Emily, being vulnerable with their lives, being honest with their walk with Christ, has encouraged so many of you and given you tools that you could use for your own walk. And so I've been longing for a while to do another one of these. And so I've been talking with my buddy Zach here, and God's been doing some amazing things in his life over the last year. And I really believe that if you listen to his story, you're going to hear some things. You're going to get some hope. You're going to get some vision. You're going to get a sense of God's unique identity he has for you. And I believe you're going to be different. And so as we go into this, I just want you to open your heart and just say, Father, show me what's in Zach's story that you're speaking over me right now. All right. Awesome. Okay. Well, listen. Hey, Zach, you and I've known each other for less than a year, I'd say.
Yeah, it's been less than a year.
You have any idea when we met?
Not really. It was over the summer. It was like kind of right before summer started.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So 6-7 months.
Yep.
But when we met, how would you describe your life?
Chaotic.
Chaotic.
Like, everything was just falling apart.
Like what did that look like specifically? What was going on in your life?
Well, I was coming out of a breakup. My whole life was just kind of crumbling around me. It just kind of felt like the walls were kind of caving in. I didn't really know where to turn, who to look to, or anything like that. And I'd had a lot of encouragement in my life at that point, mainly from my sister pushing me to come meet people at church, and just coming and talking to you for the first time, and then just really like leaning in and listening to God kind of started opening up doors for me, and that really kind of helped me see that there was a little bit of hope there. And
where was the hopelessness for you?
The hopelessness was really in my future. I think the biggest thing for me was identity. I had no part of myself left. And that's kind of a scary place to be, honestly. So
yeah. What happened? Where were you at in life? Had you had dreams, or were you just stuck? What was going on for you?
I think I was just kind of hoping and praying that I'd end up in the right place. I wasn't really sure, to be honest. I think at that point, I knew where I wanted to be, but I didn't have the drive to get myself there. I didn't have the hope. I didn't have any hope of actually getting to where I wanted to be.
What? Well, let me ask you a couple things. Why do you think hope was needed or important?
I think it's important just because if you don't, if you don't have that, you have no drive for anything. There's no adventure. There's no like sense of getting out there. There's no motivation to wake up every day and go pursue something meaningful.
I guess with hopelessness, you never want to risk, because what's the point, right?
Right.
Man, so you were hopeless. You were stuck. What did stuck look like for you?
Stuck looked like working a job that I didn't want to be at. It looked at living in a situation of school that I didn't want to be in, and furthering my education, my career. I think that was kind of a big part of it. I felt stuck when it came to my social life. I felt like I was more alone than at any other point in my life. I kind of felt like it was hard to reach out to people. It was hard to be vulnerable with people because I felt so messed up myself.
Wow. So when you were stuck, when you said it was hard to reach out, were you kind of turning turtle and like going inward, or what was that looking like?
It was looking like going turtle for a while, and then the more I started to go to the men's groups and see other people being vulnerable, I think is when it really showed me that not everybody is perfect, especially in a church environment. I had been going to men's groups my whole life since I had been a kid, and I think that gave me the wrong impression of there's so many, especially for us men out there, we're too afraid to be vulnerable with each other. and I'd sit in these groups and everyone would be thou art so holy, and no one was able to actually be real with each other. And I thought that that's what it looked like to go to church, was to perform in front of people, be the most holy, the most perfect, the most religious, spiritual person you could be. Um, but I think that's why I kind of closed off, is because I felt so far and disconnected from that viewpoint. Um, and in realizing that there were so many other guys like me that had been through very similar to, even worse situations, frankly, um, seeing their vulnerability, I think encouraged me. Yeah.
So it encouraged you, but were there individual moments that were really key for you in this journey out of stuckness, out of hopelessness?
I wouldn't say like key events, but I know specifically I really started to recall when God started to go after identity with me.
Mm,
A lot of I would say like the first bit of my journey was kind of a blur. It was all just kind of figuring out and processing everything that was going on in my life, what needed to change, what wasn't so good, what is good,
come
how
on,
how do we go from here?
taking out the trash.
Right, and I think the point in which I finally felt cognitive again was really when God started to go after identity in my life. And I remember we were sitting in a Waffle House
Come
and
on.
talking, and I had heard from God a few nights before. He was like, "We're going after identity right now." And then you're like, "Well, that's funny because that's what we're going after in our men's group and in church right now." And I think after that point, things really started to click with me.
So you're using this word identity. For you, what does that mean
Identity
for you?
really is just who you are, what God has put you here for, who God really calls you to be. I think is the big thing that comes to mind, and I think that's what gives people so much purpose, is living out who God actually calls them out to be. That's your true identity.
Come
You know.
on. Well, what do you feel like was covering up that identity or blocking that for you up to this point? Because if God made you with this identity, it's not like you grabbed a hold of it, right? It was inside of you.
It was a lot of lies. It was
Oh,
having to break down a lot of lies about myself that I had told myself, other people had told me that I was believing, and things that were you know, just kind of shoved in my head. I think just buying into those lies and believing those is really one of the things that stopped me from understanding who I was really called to be.
wow.
So
And so, out of that, like, I know like, if you don't know who you are and you're going to go to a university, how do you choose a major when you don't know who you are?
you can't, not successfully. I mean, for a time I did, when I really didn't know who I was. And in choosing that major, I thought it was something that I really did love. And I found out that I couldn't be further from that major, I think, than anything else. So
What was that major, just out of curiosity?
trumpet performance.
Wow. Why
Yeah.
why did you think, wow, I love this, so I'm gonna love studying this?
I mean, I did band in high school.
Mhm.
So 4 years. I've been playing trumpet since elementary school, and I've always had a natural talent for it. I've always loved music, and I still do. Um, and I just kind of, at that point in my life, I was just thinking, this is the only thing that I am definitively good at. I'm going to pursue this. And
Mm,
just because I was good at it doesn't mean that I was going to love it for the rest of my life. So I think
that's
I think
good.
that's something that
That's
I
good.
discovered there.
So after trumpet, what did you do then?
Nothing.
Wow, come on.
Worked.
Yeah.
Pretty much fell back and just worked at Publix, near full time. I couldn't even commit to doing full time because I didn't understand where I wanted to be, what I wanted to
Mm,
do. I couldn't commit to anything, frankly. I was just so afraid that I would end up there my whole life, which I definitely knew I didn't want to do. And then coming out of a major that I was prepared to dedicate my life to, and realizing that that wasn't for me, I think scared me, frankly.
mm.
Um, so
So
yeah,
how long were you frozen like that?
years, years.
Wow.
I mean, I'd say 2 to 3 years. I couldn't put my foot on it. It just, like I said, you look back on it and it's kind of a blurry,
Yeah.
hazy area of your life that, it takes delving back with God really to process a lot of those um, moments.
Come on. Just one second. There's many of you listening right now, and this literally what he described. You're like, that's where I am. I'm stuck. I'm frozen. I like have no hope. I'm hopeless. I'm despairing. Yeah, I know it was out of fear or confusion or regret or whatever that I've ended up in this place, but I don't know how to go forward. And so what would you say what is taking out, like we were talking about taking out the trash, right? What
Mhm.
does it look like processing all these lies? Like, I mean, because I didn't ever see you doing this like you were, I don't know, say like going to the gym. It never looked like it was a overt process. What did it
Yeah.
look like for you that you were able to do that?
Some of it was tears, some of it was sitting down and hashing things out with God. A lot of it was journaling. And then I'd say another big part of it was going to groups of individual, like our men's group and stuff, of just sitting down and being vulnerable with other guys and listening to other people's spiritual victories and realizing that that's something that I wanted and then going after and pursuing that.
Come on.
So,
So if you're hearing this, like he's saying, like even right now, you're hearing his story and you go, yes, that resonates with me. But where maybe you're still stuck, he has moved on. So that gives you hope, right? That reveals that, hey, maybe I'm believing a lie, right? That I'm stuck here. God, what's the lie I'm believing? And what's the truth, right? What's the truth? And the truth was you you were actually stuck, like you weren't moving,
mhm.
but you weren't really stuck, right? You it didn't mean that you couldn't move, right?
Yeah.
So what do you feel like was the first point, if you can pinpoint it, when you were like, oh my gosh, I feel like there might be hope?
I think I think probably that first day I started going back to church and just meeting some of the people there and talking to some of those people there. Some of these people that I was meeting that first service, I had really come back to church was, I was meeting a bunch of people and just feeling their hope and their friendliness and just seeing that people seem to actually genuinely care about each other there kind of gave me hope for maybe this is an environment in which I'm meant to be in. I think that's really when I started to see hope,
Come on.
and that's really why I chased after that. That's why I really wanted to chase after that environment and those people. I think the people aspect of it, other people giving me their hope, I think was yeah.
Wow. Well, and I want to say to that is all of us have been stuck. Man, I've been stuck way more than you've ever hoped to be stuck. I've been spent years hiding. And there's this belief I can't come out to play with people till I get unstuck. I can't, I'm not, I don't want anybody to see me, right? But the reality, right? It was when you came out to people that you found the hope rather
Right.
than the other way around.
Mhm.
Oh man, there's that. Woo! We could do an
Yeah.
altar call right there. But so hope is starting to arise. But one of the first things is as you got hope, suddenly you're facing garbage, you're facing trash, you're facing lies. Didn't that get exhausting?
It's painful.
Come
I
on.
would, yeah, I'd say it's painful, exhausting. A lot of it was a lot of dead ends. It was chasing a lot of pain,
Mm.
and trying to get answers where God was really telling me, we don't need answers here right now, or we don't need answers here, period. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. So you're being real with the questions you have, but you're being real with God with them.
Hmm.
But then what if he's saying lay it down, you're laying it down.
Sometimes, sometimes,
Okay, come on. Well, I know we're there's a lot of people involved in your story, and we
sure.
always want to make it about you, not about all the other people. But
Mhm.
what would can you take us, if you could, into maybe a question or a lie or an issue, and how God walked you through it in the nitty gritty?
I guess without being specific, there was one specific lie that I was really buying into regarding my previous relationship. And it's one that I remember hearing, and it hurt so bad that I had reached the brink of just utter despair. And it wasn't until I went to I went to my sister's room because I was just losing it at that point, and she called me into identity. She at that point, told me, this is what God has to say about you. You're believing this, and that is untrue. This is what God has to say about you. And I think from that point, I started to see there were so many other lies and so many other facets to this that I was buying into that I didn't need to be believing. I think that was the point. That was kind of one of the first lies that I think I really dealt with there.
Well, what happened? Like, I don't know about you, but when I'm believing a lie, I
Mhm.
believe it's true, right? I don't believe
Right.
it's a lie. And when somebody sits there and stands up to my face and say, you're believing a lie, this, that, and the other thing, were you offended?
Yeah. Well, yeah, yeah. Yeah, at that point, yeah.
What made you want to overcome offense to actually listen and consider that what she's saying is true?
I think once she started calling me into my identity, I really started to see, oh my gosh, no, this is true. Knowing that definitive true over the lie. And oftentimes with those lies, the devil will tell you a little bit of truth in your lie. And I think that's what made it so hard to discern in that moment. And something so nasty as that lie becomes believable for you. But I think really, like I said, when I started getting called into my identity, how God viewed me and what he had to say about me, once I started to hear that, the lie didn't matter anymore.
So, okay, so what does it mean that she was calling out your identity or calling you into your identity? How did you know it was your identity when she was saying those things?
There there wasn't like a clear, definitive, like, ringing or,
Yeah,
so it's hard to explain other than it was just I knew it.
your heart knew it was true.
Yeah, I just there's no better way to explain it other than she was calling it out. And I just knew, I was like, oh my gosh, like I've heard this before. I can't explain how, but
Wow.
I've heard this before. I know this to be
Wow.
true.
Wow.
There was just no refuting that.
Come on. Come on. Yeah, there's an identity in each of us that's unique. And it might be covered with all the manure of 1,000 years, but the reality is underneath that real diamond of identity. When it's called out, you may never have thought of it before. You've never ever heard it before. Your heart knows, yes. It's not just I hope. It's like I
Mhm.
know. That's so
Yep.
good. So that gives you a measure of hope, right? You're believing your identity. You're willing to face those lies, right? And dare to believe that the lies might not be true. But if those aren't true, how did you start to hear truth? Where did truth come from?
Truth really came from listening to God over going after things myself. I started to hear more lies when I started to pursue those lies
Mm.
without listening to what God had to say about them. I think in hearing that truth was just trusting God with those things and just trusting that He was my defender and just leaning into what He has to say about things. I know that everything He's going to ever tell me is always true. So I think that was, yeah.
Well, so I mean, we all know we believe lies, but we don't know the lies we believe because we believe them, right? We think they're true, right?
Yeah.
So, what are some ways that you have that God's been able to show you lies?
I think in just asking,
Oh, come on.
asking really good questions. I think that's something that throughout all this I learned. Like Jesus was always somebody who asked incredible questions. Just asking God those same questions, asking God, what lies am I believing? And all of a sudden, I started to get things that I didn't even knew or even know that I believed about
Wow.
myself or about situations or anything. And he started to point things out, like, you believe this, and some of it was painful to walk through. Some of it was like, wow, I didn't know that I thought that about myself.
So when you saw a lie, he showed you a lie. What would you generally do next with that lie?
What do you have to say about it, God? What do you
Um,
have to say about this lie? And the answer would almost always bring me to tears, to watch him just take that lie, usually just tear it up or just tell me to my face, this is ugly. Or even just see like God's heart for me
wow.
in that moment.
Wow.
Just know that he was crying, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's so rich. So God's taking you on this huge interior journey. You're taking out the trash. He's giving you truths about your identity in the process. So as you're finding out about your identity, like identity is like who you are at the core, right?
Mhm.
Like how would you define like because there's identity and there's purpose. Can you
Right.
define the difference between, or what you feel is the difference between this?
At least for me, I feel like identity leans more towards attributes, like who you are within a certain amount of attributes. So yeah, and then I would say purpose is more like how you take your identity and use it for God, how you live your life, basically.
So he's working on all this identity. At some point, did he start to turn towards purpose for you?
Yes,
Well,
definitely. I'd say that was a little bit more recently.
okay.
It was more after really going after identity. He started to take me through baby steps, and I think I told you, like with school, I ended up getting into a school that I've been wanting to get into for years now. And I got a little overzealous and excited at first, and I was really trying to go for it. And then I had him, say, "All right, baby steps. We're gonna go after this,
Mm,
small." But it's been baby steps, giving and like purpose
come on.
into this is where we're going, and just a little bit of guidance here and there, really.
So you were telling us before that you had stepped out of school for a while. You were afraid. You were lost. You were stuck. Whatever. And was it hard? Like when you've been stuck for a while, was it hard to begin to move again? Like, how did that happen for you?
Yeah, it felt foreign.
Yeah.
It it almost felt like I was moving too fast, I think. Um, and I think in talking to God through a lot of that, and I'm still going through that process now, I'm realizing he wants to do things at his pace, not my pace. And sometimes that's a little faster than you're ready for. Other times it's a little bit slower than you're ready for. So I think learning exactly where God wants you, and just listening to his guidance really helps in that area. Cause I know one of the first conversations you and I had is uh it was on the lines of God wants to go here and you go here with him, and then you think we're going over here and he's like, no, we're going over here. And yeah,
Mm.
so I don't
Step
know.
by step
Yeah.
yeah, I find that we so often we leap to conclusions. If you're going to take
Hmm.
me here eventually, then it must be a straight line,
Right.
right? So you when so you would make steps not necessarily even knowing what was going to come after that, right?
Sure. Yeah. I know one of the biggest ones was financially. Um, after quitting Publix, having God told me, "Hey, we're leaving. We're going somewhere else with this."
He didn't tell you where you were going?
No, not
Oh
really, not really.
wow.
I ended up I did a summer camp for it was like a couple months, and then after that, I had heard God specifically say, "Don't line anything up after this. I want you to just go and rest for a little bit. Just enjoy this time." And obviously the financial side of me was like, that is a dumb idea. That's stupid. Why would you ever do that? And I just kept hearing God say, like, trust me. I need you to trust me. I will provide. I have bills to pay, but God was like, I'll provide for you. And sure enough, um, after summer camp was over, I didn't take up any job immediately, and I started to have bills come in, and all of a sudden I started getting random checks in the mail for just like random amounts, like $900 here, and then just yeah,
Oh
just
my goodness.
crazy,
I didn't know
crazy.
that. Oh
Oh
my
yeah,
gosh.
crazy stuff. And that was just God's, just the whole time, just him saying like, here's my promise to you, like I will provide for you as long as, you're going in my will, you're listening to
Yeah.
me. And
So what happened? Did those that? How long was that period where you were those checks in the mail?
it was a couple
Oh
months.
wow!
Yeah,
Come
I
on,
think it was a couple months between
yeah,
summer camp and me landing this other job that I
come
have
on.
now.
Wow. And so in the middle of that, you did. When did you start considering going back to school?
That I well, so I guess during this period, I had been in school. I was
Okay.
just doing community college,
Right.
doing core classes. So just getting the core classes knocked out of the way so that when I did end up picking a major, I'd be a little, a little bit
Yeah.
closer to completing college faster. So I had already been back in school, but I think in deciding to go definitively back into a specific major, it was kind of recent.
So what was frightening or concerning or whatever daunting about going into the major, choosing this major that you'd always dreamed of, but you hadn't gone for?
I think one of the biggest things was, and this was revealed to me uh, one night in men's group. God really told me, like, you are afraid to succeed, and that was kind of a big slap in the face. It was a little weird, and I didn't quite understand it at the time. Um, but God really told me, like, you're afraid to commit and succeed at something because you're afraid that you're going to be unhappy with it for the rest of your life. I think once I kind of realized God knows the desires of my heart and He wants to see me succeed, He wants to see me go after something that I'm passionate about and something that I love. Once I realized that, that's when I was able to actually fully commit to something that I've been passionate about since I've been a kid.
Wow. Can
So,
you share what that is?
aviation. I want to
Ah,
be a commercial pilot.
wow.
So,
Well, and I want to be real. That is, there's a measure, hopefully, of skill involved, right? Of
sure.
academic excellence
Mhm.
involved, and was there any concern that you wouldn't be able to do the work, or you?
Not the work. I've been encouraged since I was a kid, being told I'm a smart
Come
kid.
on.
Sometimes it gets a bit hard to believe after that's all you've heard your whole life. I think I was discouraged after my freshman year as the trumpet performance major because I ended up leaving that degree and not completing my last semester. My GPA tanked. And
And you need a
so
certain GPA to get in this program?
correct, yeah,
Okay.
correct. So that was a worry of, okay, I've got failing grades on paper. I need to get these grades up. So it was really through, like, trusting God and working through that process of, well, raising those grades and then applying and trusting that, He had my back in that. It was a little bit daunting putting in that application. Just, there's not so nice things on this. This isn't going to look the best, but just trusting that He knew where I wanted to be. He knew my desires and He knew exactly where I should be. So,
So willing to risk, right? You had
mhm,
hope enough. Hope isn't a guarantee, right? But it was
mhm,
hope enough that it's worth the risk,
right,
right? Of
right.
maybe being rejected, maybe having people look at your transcripts and go, what was going on here?
Yeah, and in a way, I would say it was almost kind of vulnerable,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
I think that's kind of scary,
Yeah.
especially coming from a background of, what I just said.
Come on. Yeah. I think fear of vulnerability is probably the biggest thing that gets us stuck,
Yeah,
right? We hide from people, we hide from opportunities, we hide because we don't want to be seen as possibly less than.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll admit, showing up to some of those men's groups sometimes, I know for a while I would get kind of nervous before. You're showing up to a group of guys and then you each break out and talk to each other. You're talking to another dude about my life. And I think it's a little bit daunting. For a while, it was pretty nerve wracking. Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Come on. So applied, like you said, you got accepted, and you were thinking, man, I want to go all in, but then you're realizing baby steps.
yep.
I've watched you. One of the things I've been impressed with you is this baby steps thing. There's because the thing about a baby step is it's small, but usually either you don't know what's coming next or what you think's coming next isn't, right?
hmm
And so taking that baby step kept you in line with God's leading. But the reality is we're talking over the course of 5 or 6 months, 4 or 5 months,
Yep.
your life has radically shifted little bit by little bit.
I went from a place of despair and not knowing what the rest of my future was going to look like. That's a really scary place to be, into going to the school that I've wanted to go to for years now, and pursuing a degree in a field that I've wanted to do since I was a child. That is not at all where I thought I was going to be in, 4 or 5 months, or however long that's been.
Well, and even when you ended that summer camp, did you realize that you were going to go for the aviation program?
No.
So you didn't know then that having a remote job that could travel with you would be really helpful.
Yep.
God knew, right? He knew I've got you covered.
Yep.
With the finance before you were even willing to jump. He was already preparing the way.
That was a huge reason why he told me to wait on applying somewhere. I knew I wanted something remote. I knew that was going to be what it took. I wanted to go with Apple.
Yeah.
That was where I initially went, and God had better plans for me.
Come on.
He knew exactly where I needed to end up.
Wow.
And
it's huge.
Yeah, it was incredible.
Wow. So, I really, I really just honor your persistence. The great thing about baby steps is if you screw them up, no big loss, right?
Yep.
And you haven't had every perfect step along the way. I can't think of any you didn't, but I just know human nature.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is you've always gotten back up. You've always kept going, and little bit, that thing of little tiny steps in succession take you very fast and far. And so could you do something? Could you pray for folks? Maybe you're out there right now and you're going, that's me. I'm so stuck. I don't even know. I don't know which way out. I don't know which way up. I'm completely confused. I get the fear of vulnerability. I'm terrified. I don't want to come out to people until I've actually gotten it cleaned up or fixed up. Whatever it is, wherever you are, maybe like I am coming unstuck. I'm taking out the trash, but what this identity purpose piece, what's that? I want that. Wow, you can hear God's voice. You can know him. There's so much in your testimony that I believe is just like a menu for folks. And so could you just pray for them right now?
Sure.
Come on.
Sure. Lord, I just want to pray for everyone that is listening currently, everyone that ever will listen to this. I just want to speak your identity into these people's lives. I want you to show them where you are in their lives, where you are in their hearts. I want you to show them love, kindness, patience. I want you to help them to know that they will always be going through exactly what you need them to be going through, that every step along this journey is laid out before them by you. I just want to pray for everyone for spiritual victories in whatever they're going through. I just want to pray that you touch their hearts, you love on them, no matter what is going on. Amen.
Amen. And listen, guys, another theme that I saw throughout your story was people. Mm-hmm. You were coming out to people, whether it's coming out to church, coming out to a men's group, coming out to conversations, coming out to friends, whatever it was, you were constantly showing up and allowing yourself to be seen, being vulnerable with people and walking that out. And I'm going to say this, especially since COVID, so many have pulled back in life from the number of relationships. The average number of intimate relationships people have has dropped by 40 to 60%. So if somebody had like 4 friends before, maybe they only have 2 now, right? This is what's happening across the board. And we understand it. But if you've lived through that time in a ever shrinking sphere of friends, it's a slow death. And maybe you're realizing that. I want to encourage you, find friendships, find relationships, where you can be real. I got to say it. It's important to have relationships with people who are different than you. I mean, you by a long shot were the youngest guy in our men's group. You were having conversations with 70-year-olds, and yet God was meeting you there. There's in that diversity, not where we have all the same common struggle, but we all struggle. There's such encouragement there. And so just really want to encourage you, church. If you're in the area and you're looking for a church, Arise we'd love for you to come. But it's not just, there's churches everywhere. But what I want to encourage you is don't stay hidden. Live vulnerably. And if you go to a church, don't just sit in a pew. allow yourself to be seen by those around you. It's not a show to participate in, it's a family to belong to. So we love you guys. Thank you, thank you, thank you. If you've got questions, normally we would be watching those, but we can't watch ourselves on the screen and do this at the same time. We're too self-conscious. So we'll look back at questions. If you got questions, put them in. We'd love to hear them. But listen, when you like this, when you share it, when you get it out there, it makes a huge difference. So thank you for doing that. But we love y'all. Y'all have an amazing, incredible day, and we'll see you next time.